magic out.
Hello and welcome to Spoilers Obviously, the pop culture podcast where we're going to spoil everything that we talk about. My name is Ryan. I'm joined as always by my brother Cody. Hello, Cody.
Hello, Ryan.
Cody, what do we do when we wake? That's right. We talk about 2002's Reign of Fire.
We're going to London.
Vertical one up.
The plan is set.
1,600 yards, closing fast.
The arsenal has been assembled.
Get ready to rock and roll. Each other!
And they've got one chance to take back their world. Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale. Reign of Fire.
Perfect. Good. Very good. Well done.
Yes.
I applaud it.
Yes. So we picked this. Well, actually, you picked this movie last week. It was your second pick. For some reason, you decided you wanted to do a podcast on Wild Wild West, which I literally have not seen in 21 years. So I'm glad you switched it up.
Yeah.
Reign of Fire is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's fantastic. Really awesome. Really great cinematography and production design, which I've got a lot of
totally.
notes and discussion about that. Really cool stuff.
Well, good, because I got a lot of notes on Matthew McConaughey's pecs. So let's get right into this. So this movie's probably got one of the easiest elevator pitch scenarios of all time. It basically boils down to, how would modern society deal with the sudden appearance of dragons? Not very well, actually.
Yeah. No, they didn't do too good at all. The Borg could not overcome.
Yes, Alice Krieg. I was so happy to. I remember either seeing her name in the credits or in the lead up to the film. I don't know, maybe Ain't It Cool News had said that she was in this. I was so super excited, and she's in it for about a minute. So I guess, starting there, we have that opening scene with young Quinn, and it's kind of got this like really artsy shot. It kind of clashes with the rest of the movie as watching it with the pigeons through London Square or whatever. And we see the young Quinn, and he's walking to his mom's job site, and he's got some bad news about his scholarship, or he's not going to have the money and they're not going to have the money. And then the movie just kind of gets going right from there. There's a hole down in the ground and there's a dragon.
There's a dragon. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some really great, easy build up to just characters and setting. I mean, I don't want to say setting stakes, but just kind of giving everybody their own little bit of life. He goes down there and he's the kid that, makes the joke with the other guy that smokes the cigarettes. The kid's been there for a while, and he sees his mom, and then the fucking one guy drilling the hole, and he's like, she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing, or something. And, he pokes his head up there, which it's really cool. It's just really easy ways to set up a world that's not just paint by numbers necessarily of characters that are speaking with each other. The guy questioning the mom with the mom. I don't know. It's just it's such a quick scene. It's kind of toss away, but not at the same time.
Yeah, this is really good. I had not seen this film in a decade, surprisingly. I think I had it on DVD, and then once we got a Blu-ray player, it's like, well, you can't watch that old fucking 720p bullshit anymore. So I was kind of surprised how well the CGI dragons looked, particularly more in the back half of the film. I kind of admit the first time we see the dragon when he goes into the cave, it looked a little hokey. I thought I was watching How to Train Your Dragon. I'm like, where's fucking Jay Baruchel? The dragon just doesn't look well. But as the film goes on and the more dragons that we see, they definitely look much more menacing, and they're kind of almost on par with what we saw in the last few seasons of Game of Thrones. As far as dragon scale. And I think that you mentioned it too, the cinematography, the dark nature of the film, the actual frames of it. I think it helps out a lot too.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we've talked about that a lot on the recent podcasts too, but shooting 35 millimeter film and then printing those effects on it, just has a way with it. And I was looking at, a little bit on it too. I think we'll probably get into it as it goes, but it was shot using anamorphics on 35 millimeter film, which is really awesome and gives it such a fucking, fantastic, easy to look at look.
Yeah.
Which helps kind of, something about anamorphics just feels real and imperfect, and just feels like life. I don't know. I enjoy them quite a bit. But yeah, we'll probably go down a rabbit hole soon enough about all that.
So the film goes as he he goes in there with the dragon, gets spit on, and then chaos ensues, and he runs to his mom, and they're trying to escape. The flames are engulfing everywhere, and you get the big dragon comes out of the chute or whatever, the big tunnel hole. I'm not too sure. It's been a while since I've done construction. What exactly that's called, the pier. And then the credits fade. We have that awesome time lapse montage, of him, like the newspaper clippings, and he's doing the voiceover. I always love seeing stuff like that.
He's like, I'm trying to tell you our history. Yeah.
I kind of always thought, like the Terminator Salvation, that this was the Christian Bale that we were going to get. It was basically the same character. Credits fade out, and looks like we're in the year 2020 again. Fantastic. We just can't seem to get out of 2020. even in 2002, they knew it was going to suck.
Yeah, a couple of guys just trying to take his fucking family to the grocery store and pick up some fucking vegetables.
Me and a few others. We're going harvesting, Queen. No, you're not.
But
So and then the movie's plot progresses. I guess this is probably where we can start talking about the actors in the roles. I guess let's start with Christian Bale. I really, really appreciated his take as kind of like the reluctant leader of this. He's really only focused on keeping his people alive. There's that great scene between him and Gerard Butler right after they rescued Eddie the loser out in the tomato field, and he's kind of like, maybe he's right. I don't have kids. He's buried all his kids. I don't know. Maybe he's right. And it's kind of like he's kind of like, maybe we're just polishing brass on the Titanic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this was obviously, for everyone listening, this was the pre Batman Begins Christian Bale.
Oh yeah.
Post American Psycho, kind of like in that early aughts 2000s there, Christian Bale, where we had Equilibrium and Reign of Fire, and he it's interesting to note because I feel like he's talking about these films, but I think when he won, I can't remember if it was before or after, but when he won for The Fighter, I specifically remember him making note of Mark Wahlberg being nominated for the Oscar as well, for Best Actor for The Fighter. And I feel like it was in his speech, but he said something along the lines of like, I'm glad that Mark got noticed. I've spent a lot of time, playing that stoic, that stoic character, that stoic person, that stands quiet while the others are not allowed to,
Yeah. Well, everybody else is acting a fool.
Yeah, he's playing, playing the stoic actor while, you're kind of like putting the fucking flag down so that everybody else can be, not the standing ground.
He's like the rock that everybody else is crashing against.
Yeah, and basically kind of, I think, alluding to the fact that because Mark Wahlberg's playing that stoic performance, that he's able to be the crazy brother in The Fighter. And so you see that here completely as you watch Christian Bale and McConaughey go head to head. McConaughey is allowed to be the one that's fucking unhinged with the fucking sexy tats and the pecs and the to London, So it's cool. It is cool to see that he pulls his weight. We talked a little bit about before, certain acting moves and certain certain times he says
we can definitely reiterate on that because we haven't aired that podcast yet.
Oh yeah.
I think it's kind of weird to look back on it now too, because you're like, well, who got this movie made? Because if you look at Christian Bale, he's in the lead role in the film, even though he gets second billing behind McConaughey, but he's not Christian Bale yet. He's not, like you said, he's not Batman. He hasn't done these Oscar-winning roles. You think like the two major roles he had before this he was the villain in Shaft, and then he was basically the same character in American Psycho. But I don't think a lot of people had actually seen American Psycho up to that point. It was limited release. I didn't even know if I had seen it. So you're kind of like watching this movie and you're like, is that the kid from Newsies? But even with McConaughey, he clearly has this presence, this like movie star gravitas. But up until this point, he's kind of been in a lot of drivel. He hit the scene with The Time to Kill, and I guess you could say Dazed and Confused. Went right to Contact, which is another movie I love. He had a bit part in that. In Amistad, he was basically playing the great-great-grandfather to his A Time to Kill character. And then he's just kind of featured in a few rom-coms. I don't know if Failure to Launch was prior to this.
I think, after he rolled into like fucking How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and Fool's Gold level shit,
Yeah, and like right before this was Ed TV, which I do love, but it's kind of like we hadn't seen him like this. So it's kind of like a pretty big departure from everything he'd done up to this point. This is his, well, maybe I'll try to be an action star role.
The volunteer section of this campaign is now over. It's time for the draft.
I mean, he did U571, but this is his, I'm going to take roids and chew a cigar and be a dick to everybody action movie role.
Yeah, totally. He's got, he's rocking the shaved head. Which this is so this is 2002, right? So let me see here. Yeah, so we got Triple X that same year,
Yeah,
we got shaved heads and tats, on the arms.
I distinctly remember walking out of the theater of this movie saying, all right, I'm going to do three things. I'm going to shave my head, I'm going to get in great shape, and I'm going to get one of those badass dragon tattoos. So I made it to step one, and then that was it. That was as far as I got.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, step one is perfect,
Now we don't have to worry about step one. It's already there.
Yeah. No, it was an interesting time for everybody too, but yeah, McConaughey, I think Frailty maybe came out the year before, so he never really disappeared. It was like you said, it was like Time to Kill, Contact, he's here. It was not the reconnaissance.
Reconnaissance?
Yes. What do they call him? The re-resurrection of Matthew McConaughey, which is crazy. I don't think about that. It's like 7 or 8 years old now too. But it was the list goes on, and then we have the great Olympus Has Fallen, Mr.
Oh my God,
Mr. Gerard Butler.
I didn't even put him in his notes. It's such a great side guy role. Was he I'm trying to think, was he in that one of the first Tomb Raider?
Yeah, he was in the second one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's kind of like, he's obviously doesn't have the 300 sprayed on abs, but he's kind of playing like the plucky sidekick. I like, he's great. He fits the role perfectly. Yeah. I love that great scene between him where they're acting out Empire Strikes Back.
Words that burn into our hero's heart forever. I am your father.
And he full dads them there for a second. He's like,
Yeah,
you
he's
make
like,
that up?
okay.
And he was like, every word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm a date. And then, right before they go into the prayer and stuff, and the kids are like, oh, Lion King, let's do the shark one. Do the shark one. So,
yeah, actually, and maybe, so I might take us down a way here, because that cinematography there for not only that scene, but the shots of the children, is so brilliant. And there's like uplighting that's happening on the stage, but it's kind of kicking back on the kids, and it's like a wide anamorphic shot of all the kids sitting there, which is really awesome and fantastic. And I feel like I do, I don't want to hijack things, but Adrian Biddle, who's the gentleman who shot that film, has a really cool history about himself that I was recently catching up on. But originally I knew him because, early aughts Cody obviously was I just want to say Wachowski on the podcast, but Adrian Biddle shot V for Vendetta.
Awesome.
But he passed actually before V for Vendetta was released.
No.
Interestingly enough. But this guy, so he got his start. This wasn't his first film, but he was a focus puller on Alien for the cinematographer at the time. So when James Cameron ran into a lot of trouble with the British crew on Aliens, Ridley Scott suggested Adrian Biddle as the cinematographer for Aliens.
No shit. Wow.
So he shot a good portion of Aliens, and that was his first cinematography role.
Oh wow. I can kind of
Yeah.
Not to compare them to his films, but
Yeah.
he's definitely got a distinct style that
Yeah,
I see in both.
Yeah, like the creatures and the people and the guns and the tanks and everything, just kind of moving through all that. Yeah, interesting stuff. He also shot the first two Mummy films, for better or worse.
Okay, well, I'll take that back.
He got it. He got rusty. But yeah, it really grounds the world. The use of the cinematography really tries to ground the world in so much. And I was just also watching a quick video behind the scenes thing with Rob Bowman, the great Rob Bowman, speaking about.
Great. Yes, we will cover him.
Yeah. Speaking just about watching films with his family when he was a kid and how he loved films that would be so fantastical, but they would convince you in every way that they possibly could that they were real and trick you. And he said that he really loved that. And I think they really tried to use the cinematography to really do that. What would the world look like if it was burnt to ash and ruled by dragons, and that stuff we've talked about it a million times. Road Warrior, shit like that. I love fucking when you see the dirt in the fingernails and it's like all in the eyebrows. Like, give me that all day.
Yeah, I really love the aesthetics of the middle act of the movie where they're at the castle. Apparently, this movie was filmed in an actual live coal mine, which for the storyline of everything being charred to ash, it fits perfectly. There's a funny aside. The producers were granted access to film in the coal mine with the stipulation that they left it exactly as they found it and that they couldn't damage it. It's kind of ironic. We're digging these massive meteor-sized holes into the ground, trying to dig up these air polluting carbons, and they're like, well, just fucking make sure you sweep that coal back where you found it.
Yeah, don't fuck around.
Yeah, it's we skipped over a few cast members, but let's talk about Rob Bowman for a second. It's this large apocalyptic world-ending movie. The premises, but it's actually pretty small in scale. And there was really only two quote unquote hero dragons, that the main characters interact with. And until, at the end, we see that over the huge sky of London, there's hundreds or thousands of them.
Yeah.
And Rob Bowman, who I think we've talked about before and how we kind of enjoy most of his films. I still have a great love of the first X-Files movie. Felt pretty perfect for the time. It was summer 98, and it was just basically a 2-hour show with better effects, but it was still kind of a small story. And then everybody hates it, but Elektra, I think, is just another kind of small, tight story, just focusing on a few characters, nothing bombastic, nothing crazy. And I think I don't know if that's something that comes from his work in television. He's back doing TV, but I really appreciate the scale of the story.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, everything feels very lived in the film. It's rare throughout that whole film that there's a moment that I'm like, that seems kind of lame, which I think of as like a small moment that's just, it's like one shot, maybe two shots, but even once they kill the dragon, it cuts to them like riding across the hills of fucking Scotland on the horse, riding back. And it's just like, the helicopter's down, they're riding on the fucking horse back home now. You're like, I appreciate that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really interesting stuff. And there's certain films in the early 2000s. I'm trying to remember now. Did X-Men 2 come out? That was 2003, probably, right?
It might have been 2001. I can't remember.
Yeah. But there's a certain amount of like coverage that certain films kind of get, to like tell the story that they want to tell, and like use these shots to like, put atmosphere in and do things like that. And sometimes I feel like on a film set, they could be one of the first things to go, the ones that get kicked out, or the ones that the second unit maybe comes in and tries to shoot later. But it's like, you don't really know. It all depends on like the amount of time that you have to shoot and what you're trying to do, blah, blah, blah. But the moments in there that are some of my favorites are the ones, I feel like we've talked about this before, are the ones where it's like, you're looking out. It's nighttime. Everybody's sleeping in the castle. You're like looking out the window, and you hear like you're like the flap of the dragon, and then it like slowly turns, and you slowly dolly, and the gate starts to open, and you move in through that stuff. There's like no fucking actors involved. There's no anything. That'll be the first thing that somebody comes over and goes, maybe we don't need that shot. But that stuff builds.
It totally adds to it. You're right.
Yeah. And there's one shot that happens too where I'm trying to remember. So the guy that's in the tower, he like calls over to the other guy with the bird.
Yeah. Oh, the great Ned Dennehy from Peaky Blinders.
Oh fuck yeah, that's right. Yeah. And he calls over to him, and he's like, can you like watch the horizon or something? And he was like, but she's not moving. But it's like in one shot, and you see the bird in the background. Yeah. And anyway, he just looks at the bird, and he's like, she's not moving. But you, as the audience, he doesn't say the bird isn't moving. You, as the audience, just sees that he's looking at the bird. That stuff I always appreciate, and it really helps kind of make you get lost. You feel like you're living in this world, and they're real humans that are joining you in this world.
Yeah, that's so good. Going back, so we skipped over the great Isabella Scoruppo. I think she's only had like 3 roles, or 3 that I know of. She was obviously the Bond girl in GoldenEye. Whatever. She looked great. I guess that's all you're looking for. I'm just dismissive. I do remember enjoying her performance in that, and then she was in that awesome Chris O'Donnell Vertical Limit cliffhanger knockoff. Yes. So she's great. She plays Alex Jensen, the American helicopter pilot. I wonder how one learns to fly a helicopter in the apocalypse. I don't think there's a lot of flight hours that you're able to put in. But she seems perfectly capable. I love the her fucking, it was so absurd when after Bale and McConaughey get into the fight, and she's like, he could have killed you. He has no emotion. That's why he's able to do what he does. Oh my God.
Check.
But all right. So we gotta, I have some more takes on McConaughey. This is going to be a Matthew McConaughey heavy podcast, and his character of Van Zant. So one more cast member. So Alexander Siddig, he plays the radio operator in the castle. He's kind of I just remember him from Kingdom of Heaven, and he was they destroyed his character from the books on Game of Thrones.
Good.
But anyways, he plays the radio operator in the castle, which, another aside, that's a pretty good gig to get during the apocalypse, huh? It's like, what are you doing? Well, I got to go pick tomatoes. I hope the dragon doesn't come. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just fucking, I got the headphone to my ear. I'm turning the dial on the radio.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll catch up with Eugene's girlfriend. The thing too, if that's your one job during the apocalypse and you're trying to pick up faint radio signals, maybe put fucking both headsets on your ear and try to actually listen instead of doing that cool thing where you're like, no, I can't hear anything. Wait, I hear something.
Yeah, but, no, that's fair.
Anyways, I digress.
Continue.
So he was asked in 2015 what, about the movie and his role in it and stuff like that. He said, I don't remember anything about the movie except for one thing. And it was that the day before shooting, the first assistant director came into the trailer, where all the lower tier actors are. And he said, look, guys, just do me a favor. When you see Mr. McConaughey, don't call him Matthew or Mr. McConaughey. He'd like to be referred to as Van Zant. And if you see him on the street on Dublin during the weekend, just make sure you call him Van Zant too. So I immediately thought of fucking Tropic Thunder and Robert Downey Jr. as Lazarus, just completely staying in character, so committed to the craft. This clearly his Daniel Day-Lewis moment.
Yeah, it was the Dragon film.
Can you imagine? I mean, he's such a prick in this movie, but you have to deal with that day in and day out on the set of him just fucking channeling that assholedness.
Yeah,
Denton Van Zant,
asshole with the heart of gold in the end.
It's I kind of think about that too, like the long line of movie assholes that we love. I think first and foremost we think of Quint from Jaws, maybe like every Nick Nolte character from 1981. this working class hero, top of his profession, but he knows it, and he kind of treats everybody around him like an asshole. And we love to watch those guys on film, but if you had to work 5 minutes with this guy at your job, you'd probably fucking quit at 2 p.m. He's kind of a dick. He's just kind of a dick.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Full dick. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the we mentioned it earlier before already, but it was so out of character for him to do at this point that I would be so interested in knowing what was behind his decision or his feeling to want to pursue this role. Did Rob Bowman do anything between X-Files and this film, or was it?
I don't believe so. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and I feel like I have such a, you mentioned this already, I have such a skewed view. I do love that first X-Files film. I think it's the same thing. It has so much fantastic atmosphere. It feels so weighty and big. It feels like a summer film. The moments in that are set pieces that are so memorable, like the bee scene, when they're in, and that stuff's part of like the coverage thing that I love about what he does too, where it's like, if I remember correctly, it was like they're inside the little vent thing, and then the top hatch opens. It's like, and like fucking David Duchovny like looks up, and then Gillian Anderson looks up, and then they look forward, and all like everything starts opening. Such a great shot. Yeah, and it's just like that stuff really builds the mood and the tension so well. That I feel like Rain and Fire does the same thing.
What's your favorite overall scene in the movie?
Favorite scene in the movie.
All right, I'll go. I think that upon rewatch, I mean, of course, the first dragon kill is suspenseful and action with the archangels and trying to get the triangulator up and stuff like that. But I really like that scene afterwards. Partly McConaughey's speech when he comes back into the hall.
Envy the country that has heroes, huh?
I say pity the country that needs them. 1 dragon down, 3 men dead, oh yeah. At that rate, we might just be getting somewhere in about 320 years.
He just raises the cigar and he basically fucking gives everybody shit for 5 minutes. And then the scene right after where, Christian Bale's on the horse and he's going through the graveyard and we got all those cool makeshift, crosses with the tassels hanging off them and stuff like that. And the flames going off. And he just kind of, and McConaughey's just standing there with his arms crossed in front of the fire. And, and he's like, "What are you doing here, Quinn?" And he's like, "What are you doing here? I buried thousands."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I lead, you follow." It's just fucking, I don't know. I really like that scene. It makes no sense. And McConaughey's just, again, chewing scenery. But I think I like the aesthetics of it and the way it was shot. And then just the two of them kind of going at it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I think, that stuff has such great atmosphere. And the one thing that I was thinking about that scene too, because I always loved that when I was a kid, my favorite scene probably is the McConaughey speech part. It probably, I think it just hurts so good. But it's that scene, because like when he walks away from that conversation and he's like, "So have your little soiree," and he turns around and he goes, "We bury the dead at dawn," and then you see him burning the shit in the next scene. You're like, what is he watching? Like, there's just a bonfire burning, and then he's like, "What are you doing here?" And it's like, well, what is everybody doing here?
Why is Gamora?
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit more about that Van Zandt character? I fucking, despite all his bluster, he's really not that effective in this movie. He really doesn't do a lot. One major thing that he pulls off is harpooning the dragon as Christian Bale is on the horse. It's a great scene, but he takes it out with the harpoon, which looked really cool, in 2002, but now in 2020, in hindsight, after seeing dullest or Jack Sparrow on Game of Thrones do it from half a mile away, it's apparently not a lot of skill goes into that. and then an hour later, there's a dragon that's 10 times that size, and he's just fucking right there up front of the tank shooting it with the shotgun. It's like, come on, dude, what are you doing? Never mind the jumping off the smokestack with an axe. I'm not exactly sure what he was trying to accomplish there, but I literally can't believe that he was leading these people. I just think he bullied them into fucking submission to follow him across the Atlantic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it all leads to confusing things, and you do wonder. I don't know, because you don't want to go down this deep dark path of trying to break down the writing necessarily. But there is things, because I watching it, I was like, it's hard to tell what is action hero and what is like actually thought put into the character, because there's the moment actually to go back to the Christ, what is it? Piscatella. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. But he's like Piscatella is dead, and then like 5 seconds later he's like, good job, Piscatella.
Yeah. All right, Piscatella's alive. But that scene, but there is the moment in that too which kind of exudes like alpha confidence, where you almost kind of like, obviously, because what does he say to Christian Bale? He says something along the lines of, immediately he realizes it's Christian Bale, and then he's like, you gotta bring you're the bait, and he's like honest about him coming here. He's like 1,400 pounds of horse flesh right down his throat.
Bring her to me, Quinn. I'm coming.
And he's like, it's like he's aware enough to know that Christian Bale's out there right now, but they don't have any motorcycles or anything, so he's obviously rode one of the horses, and he knows the horses out there. What part of that is convenient writing, or what part of that is them actually trying to be like, he's a smart guy, he's a leader, he knows exactly what's going on. What is he doing to pinpoint, like, what is he doing to what is it that has all these people be inspired behind Christian Bale, or that has everyone inspired behind him, McConaughey, and it's like, and then I pause and I'm like, am I thinking way too fucking deep in it? What did Ian McShane what did Ian McShane say about Game of Thrones? Tits and dragons.
Tits and dragons. Yeah, it's tanks and dragons.
Just how do you get McConaughey's shirt off? So just get me there.
Yeah. Trying to think. I during that particular action sequence too, it's another great shot where McConaughey's on the top of the truck or the tank or whatever, and the dragon comes and he makes a pass with the fire, and he leaps off and the fire explodes behind him, and then when he lands, he does the superhero landing, and it's got the little patch of fire on the back of his vest, like, he was really close, but it was pretty badass.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, those little moments I think make movies, and the just little piece of fire on the back of his ass is awesome. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the shots too. There's one sequence in there too where Gerard Butler's talking to Christian Bale, and he's like, "You just let them all in, blah blah blah." And he's like, "What would you have?" And then the helicopter flies over. Yeah, which is really cool kind of setup, as they all kind of slowly and quickly start to see, that they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Such a good, and right after too, and he's like, set the watch, and he's like, you let him in. Well, no, don't mean I trust him. It's funny. I'm trying to. So I think Bale comes off great in this film. It's kind of a star-making performance, even though this movie didn't do very well at the box office. But I kind of wonder if, he's got a great physique in this role. Did this, how he kind of carried this movie, did this have anything to do with his casting as Bruce Wayne with Christopher Nolan just 2 or 3 years later?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it has some very similar aesthetic and feels at times, specifically in the first half of Batman Begins, where they're in the mud and the water and the, Christian Bale's beard growing action. But
I'm trying to think. So let's take a look at Christian Bale, excuse me, what he did after this and what was leading up to it. Of course, you talked about. He went from. He did this basically around the same time as Equilibrium. and then right into The Machinist, and then right back into Batman Begins. So it's kind of scary. You know, a lot is always made of, you know, how he's able to change his physique for roles and the dedication that he puts into it. But to go from where he was at in this one to The Machinist and then all the way back to Batman Begins, it's really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it seems like the beginning of his time here. Yeah, something like snapped on the inside. Because there was, you know, I read, and I don't remember how I stumbled upon this. I think this might have been part of the cinematography stuff that I was looking into. But so they discussed the scene where him and McConaughey throw down.
Yeah.
And they were legit, actually, I guess, throwing down.
Oh, I could totally see that.
Yeah. That that there was, they were throwing real fisticuffs and blows with each other. And I guess when McConaughey headbutt Christian Bale, I guess, you know, Bale was saying, like, he was like, the crew said, like, you know, it sounded like, you know, fucking watermelon got hit with a hammer and echoed off the castle walls. And he was like, but I loved it. That was great. We all just went in, and I was like, that was the beginning of Bale.
Yeah, I guess he had also, you know, when he had first gotten the script or the role before he'd even gotten the script, he started to slim down because he's probably the only person in history who thinks, oh, it's the apocalypse, I probably should lose weight. And then once he got the script and he read it and he read about that fight scene and stuff like that, he's like, oh no, I'm going to have to be able to, I don't want to get my ass kicked, you know? So he bulked up again. I don't know how the man sheds and loses muscle so quickly, but all right. Enough about Christian Bale's pecs. Anything else you want to add to the movie? Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I think, you know, it's such an interesting film and such an interesting time period that it came out, that obviously didn't get a lot of fanfare. And I don't even know if I fucking remember the trailers for this, like what the trailers looked like, you know, but it was, you know, I'm sure
something got it, because we saw this in the theater. I dragged you along, you and Jessica. So there was something we were super excited about. But looking back, I can't think what brought us in there, whether it was McConaughey or just fucking. I think for me, it was just fucking dragons.
Yeah. It definitely feels it's a full guy film.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
That like I think I remember seeing the poster and being like, dragons. Yeah. And maybe that's part of what it was too, you know, that was like, there wasn't a lot of, you know, my love for Dragonheart had rolled into Rain of Fire. Yeah.
Well, thank you. We dragons love to sing when we're happy.
It's just, you know, hoping for Randy Quaid to pop up.
Where have you been?
And be like, yeah, fucking they travel to the stars.
Oh God.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's so solid. It's you know, well put together. You know, it makes sense. I wonder where it stands now. You know, in the cult pantheon of films, and how people do look back and remember it, because it's such a I mean, there's like nothing terribly wrong with this film ever.
Yeah, no. Even the bad parts are good in a way. You know, it's the stuff that stands out. You know, particularly for me, the Van Zandt character and his absurdity. It's still got that kind of like B movie quality to it. You know, it's still the performance is still amazing, and he's over the top. So I think he wins the movie for me. I did a kind of a skimming the surface deep dive of. I searched the movie on Reddit to see, you know, and there was a thread like 2 or 3 years ago that, you know, had 19,000 upvotes where they were talking about the movie. Hey, check it out. And I guess somebody linked it. The whole thing was on YouTube, which I wish I'd known before I plunked down $4 to rent it. But it was, you know, I mean, the top comments were overwhelmingly positive. So I think, you know, I think it's a great movie. It's a great, you know, I don't think it's ever rarely on TV, but if you can catch it, it seems like the perfect FX movie that, you know, it's on a Saturday afternoon. You should definitely check it out. All right. Well, Cody, there's only one thing worse than a dragon, and that's having to end this podcast.
I thought you were going to say Americans.
We already know how bad they are.
Only one thing worse than a dragon. Americans.
Yeah.
So from all of us to all you, we just remind you to keep your eyes in the sky and stay safe out there. And we'll catch you next time. All right,
dig
bye.
hard, dig deep.
Oh, so many great lines.
Cool.
All right, take it easy.
All right.